So, welcome. It's Saturday morning Thai time, Friday evening in the U.S. What is this? The 6th of December? 7th of December. And that today, let's talk about Anapanasati. In fact, the Anapanasati Sutta is one of the most important suttas in all of the um, Tripitaka. And one of the most interesting things about it is that it is not harped on in all of the other suttas. And part of the reason that you could say for that is that all of the other suttas talk about a bit here and a piece here, but they're all referring back to the Anapanasati Sutta. Another thing, by the way, this is Majjhima Nikaya number 118. Majjhima Nikaya number 118. It was done late in the life of the Buddha.
You can exit out if you want.
Pardon?
Sorry, having technical difficulties. Just give me 1 second.
All right. So, this sutta actually looks interesting in an importance kind of way, in the sense that it starts out talking about what a large group of monks are there. Part of the reason for this is because the Buddha actually summoned them. He says, next month we're going to do something big and special. And so all of the monks in the entire vicinity were there for this sutta. And that he talks about it in the sense that we have this teacher and that teacher. This is part of the reason why it can be considered late, is because by this time, he actually had a university. He was the dean, and he had all of these professors with all of these large classes. Some of the teachers, by the way, the names of them was Sariputta and Mahakassapa, Mahakachana, Chana, and many other monks. They're actually listed there in the suttas, with some of them having 20 students, some have 30 students, some have 40 students. Now, in that regard, the students actually lived with the teacher. When way long ago, in, let us say, in the Middle Ages, probably 17th, 16th century, like that, the universities were set up so that the teacher and the students lived together. In certain places, like at MIT, when they're doing a research project, the same is true. And so this has been a tradition in the Bhikkhu Sangha, is that the students actually live in close vicinity with their teacher. Like I lived at Wat Suan Mok, and I saw Ajahn Po every day. And so the next one is that he talks about the kinds of people, the groups of people there, in the sense of what they were practicing. He talked about those who were practicing the 4 Brahma Viharas, and like Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekkha. He talked about those who were practicing the jhanas. He talked about the fact that there was many there who already knew the Dhamma quite well, talking about Sotapanna and Sotagami, and Amagami, etc. But then as he introduces the sutta, he talks about it in a way of, guys, listen to me. This is the Anapanasati Sutta, and if you practice it, you will get great fruit, great benefit, almost as if those who were practicing various other things were not really getting what the Buddha said. And then he starts off talking about it in the sense that the Anapanasati Sutta is practiced for the fulfillment of uh, the Satipatthana, for the four foundations of mindfulness. Now, the four foundations of mindfulness are also mentioned in many, many different suttas. There's two suttas actually dedicated to the Satipatthana. And he says then that the Anapanasati Sutta is for the fulfillment of these four foundations of mindfulness. In the Pali, that's Kaya Nupassana, Vedana Nupassana, Chitta Nupassana, and Dhamma Nupassana. And what that means is mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of the feelings, mindfulness of the mind and what the mind states are, and mindful of what's happening, including what's happening inside the mind. And then we practice the four foundations of mindfulness for the fulfillment of the Sambhojana. Hello, Robert. Great to see you. We practice the Sambhojana, the seven factors of enlightenment, because the seven factors of enlightenment are, in fact, the fulfillment of the Eightfold Noble Path. A lot of people don't make the connection that the Eightfold Noble Path is what we're practicing. And when we practice the Eightfold Noble Path, we're actually practicing the Anapanasati as the way or the method of practicing the Eightfold Noble Path. And we practice the Anapanasati for the fulfillment of the Eightfold Noble Path. And that fulfillment then is called the Sambhojana, or the seven factors of awakening. And then we practice the seven factors of awakening for the fulfillment of knowledge and deliverance. And that I use the word here, the Western word, they use the word enlightenment without even knowing what it means. And so I'll give you a working definition of what it means right now. The word light is the operative in enlightenment, and we have two different kinds of light. One is shine a light on it, daylight, being able to see, setting things up in a way so that you can really look and see what's going on. And by doing so over and over and over again, that brings upon knowledge. And then we continue to look and to continue to look. It's all about observation, not drawing any conclusions. But every time you look, you'll see something that is heavy. And so the second part of enlightenment is the deliverance from that by setting it down, relinquishing it, throwing it off. Atlas shrugged. What does Atlas shrugged means is that everybody is carrying the entire weight of their world around on their shoulders, mostly between the ears, and Atlas, each one of us as Atlas is shrugging that whole world, throwing it off, putting it down. If we see how heavy our burden is, we would set it down. Christianity has it is that, oh, the burden is light. Keep carrying it. Don't look at it. But the teachings of the Buddha is, it says, no, take a look at all of that crap that you're carrying around and set it down. And how do we look at it? We look at it through the lens in of Anapanasati. So, one of the mistakes that many people make with Anapanasati is by thinking that the order in which it is mentioned or the order in which it is taught is the order in which it is to be practiced. And that's certainly not the case. It's not at all chronological. That in fact, if you want to look at the chronological aspect of it, the
Did he cut off?
Did Ko Peng Yang lose internet?
Logical order to look at.
Dhammarato, you there? Right there, the emptiness.
Oh, there he is. Looks like your internet's back on.
How long was the internet off?
About 15 seconds.
It's still recording.
Yep.
All right. So where did we leave off when the internet went away?
You were.
It's not to be practiced chronologically.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the internet didn't go away but a second. All right. Yes, the Anapanasati Sutta is not to be practiced in the order that it is mentioned. That it's mentioned in the order of the four foundations of mindfulness, but it's practiced in a different way. That in fact, the best way of thinking about practicing Anapanasati is whatever comes up, one at a time, one by one as they occur. Now, a chronological order would be the Sambhojana in the sense of unremitting mindfulness. Mindfulness or sati comes first in chronological order. And what is sati? What is the chronological order? It is to remember to practice. To remember to practice. To keep practicing over and over again, to remember to practice. Look at all of the various ordinary skills throughout the world. People can become musicians. Kids can play the piano and take lessons for a couple of years or 3, and then they'll give it up when they're adults. But those who practice every day and keep practicing will become world-class musicians simply because they keep practicing. I've got 2 stories about that. One story is the story of Franz Liszt. He lived as a monk. I think, in fact, he was ordained. He lived in a chapel, and he had 3 things that he did all day long. One is that he practiced meditation for about 8 hours a day. He practiced the piano and the organ about 8 hours a day and left everything else in the last 8 hours a day, eating and sleeping. But he was practicing and practicing and practicing. And that's why he wound up with the, let us say, the reputation of being the best pianist of all time. There's another one that's good to know, and that is Arthur Rubinstein. He had in the 1970s, when he was in his 90s, they did an interview, and they says, now that you're a world-class musician and are practicing, not just practicing, but giving performances on a regular basis, do you practice anymore? And he says, if I miss one day of practice, I'll know it. If I miss 2 days of practice, the housekeeper will know it. If I miss 3 days of practice, the dog will know it. Okay? If you've got a dog, Rocky, if you've got a dog, Robert, you need to remember that the dog knows when you're practicing or not. And here, another one would be martial arts. Kids who do Ichi, Sachi, and do the movements and have the horse stance and all of this kind of stuff in karate, if they stop doing it, they can't do it anymore. But the masters keep practicing. Day after day after day. The problem I think that Westerners have is that when they talk about an arahat, someone who is completely accomplished, they think that he doesn't practice anymore because he's already made it. The answer to that is that he's made it because now the only thing he's got left to do is to practice, to look. And so this is what we mean by inner unremitting mindfulness, is to remember to look. Now, the Buddha also says looking, that's the number one item. We have to look. We have to research. Don't come to conclusions, just do more investigations. It's sort of like Santa Claus, this is Christmas time. Santa Claus is opening his bag, and he takes a look at it, and he takes a toy out. And then he looks again in the bag and takes another toy out. And then he looks again in the bag and takes another toy out. This is exactly the way that we should practice, and that we need that skill to do that all the time. Now, many people want to get started by doing it for just one time a day. I would recommend that you start thinking about doing it at least once an hour to keep coming back. Keep coming back. Keep coming back over and over and over again. The real practice, if you're going to be a master of your own self, you've got to practice. You got to keep going over it, over and over and over again. And so the third item of the Sambhojana is that when you practice like this, instead of it becoming an effort, beginners, like beginning piano students, it's quite an effort. Karate is quite an effort for the beginner, but for the master, it's muscle memory for him. He remembers, and then he can practice, and it's effortless, energetic even. So in the Eightfold Noble Path, we have just covered the first three basic items. Unremitting remembrance, to keep coming back. Unremitting, keep coming back. Over and over and over again, keep coming back. To look, to see, and then to take the effort, the right noble effort, to make the change, to throw the unwholesome thoughts out of the mind. And when we do that over and over and over again to get the skills of doing that, then it's actually easy to do because we're practicing. We're in the habit of practicing. So this is the Sambhojana. When we do that, it automatically has then the unremitting joy, the pleasure. The next one is peace. You have unremitting relaxation. You also have unremitting collectedness of the mind so that you're whole. And then you also have upekkha, unremitting, I don't give a damn. Unremitting, everything is okay already. It doesn't need to be fixed. And the reason for that is because we're ready to relinquish, we're ready to give up anything that we can see. Just like Santa Claus, when he looks in that bag, he finds something to take out of that bag. The bag never does get quite empty. There's always something in there. If nothing's left, there's only angel dust. Take the bag, turn it upside down, and empty that too. So this is the practice of the Sambhojana. That's what leads then to the knowledge and the deliverance, the enlightenment. You can see what needs to be done. You have knowledge of what's to be done because you remember to look over and over and over and over and over again. So now that we've gotten the preliminaries out of the way, let's start looking at some of the items on the Anapanasati list. But in fact, the Sambhojana, the Satipatthana, the four foundations of mindfulness, you can see that it's going to be grouped in fours. And that the four things then in the Anapanasati Sutta are broken down into 4 items for each one of them. So it's a 4x4 list, given a total of 16. Now, it is actually quite useful and positive to think of each of the 4 foundations of mindfulness to break it into 2 groups. The first 2 and the second 2 of the body, the first 2 and the second 2 of the Vedana, the first 2 and the second 2 of the Chitta Nupassana, and the first 2 and the second 2. That in fact you can say the beginner does the first 2, and then when we get the skills, we can do the second and the third. Let's give an example of that with the body. In the beginning, we at least can remember to breathe in long, and to remember to breathe in and out, long and short. Those are the first 2 items. The third item and the fourth item is a little bit more advanced, in the sense that by watching the breath, by looking at the breath, we become knowledgeable of the body. We can actually see what the body is doing. We can see what tensions and anxieties and angers and things that are that way in the body, so that we could do the fourth item, which is to relax. The same thing is true with the Vedana, in the sense that the first 2 items of the Vedana is the Sukha and the Piti, which means joy and overjoyed. And then the second 2 would be to investigate, to see how things are interrelated. In the sutta, the way that it's described as conditioners, to see how our feelings condition the mind, to see how the mind conditions the feelings. And then the last item of the Vedana is going to be to relinquish, or to break up, or to actually manage those conditioners, so that you're free from those conditioners. So for instance, if your body is in pain, it doesn't make you feel bad. And then in the mind, the first 2 items is to investigate the mind. That's step number 9. And step number 10 would be to gladden the mind. But in the last 2, it's going to be to unify the mind and to liberate the mind. Now, in the Dhammanupassana, the first 2 is to see how everything is changing. And in that way, we can see that some things go up and some things go down. And in fact, anything that changes, anything that goes up has got to go back down. But the last 2 is that not only does everything go down, but it rots. Everything dies. Everything gets old. And then the very last step of Anapanasati is to, therefore, throw it out. The word is often used, relinquish. Okay. There's a statement that came from Charlton Heston, I think, when he was the head of the NRA. You're going to, if you get his gun, you're going to have to take it away from him with his whole dead hands still holding onto that gun, right? That's how we often live our lives. We keep our cold, dead hands wrapped around whatever it is that we don't need anymore. And so it's almost like the relinquishing is an active act of taking it away. Now, in the West, we have the phrase of let it go. Letting it go is not an option. You can let something go. For instance, you've got a bobcat clawing on your arm, nibbling on your hands. You can't just hold the hand out and let the bobcat go. You got to sling that dude off. You got to relinquish it. You got to throw it off. This is actually where right noble effort comes in. And for the beginning, even throwing off a negative, unwholesome thought has to be thrown out. Even a negative thought has to be thrown out. A negative feeling has to be thrown out. Yes, Ivan, go right ahead.
Yeah, Dhammarato, I was thinking, like, is it also possible to just starve it? Like, because the Buddha say, everything needs food to survive, right? So this unwholesome, or you can, at least I see as kilesas or defilements, I just have to starve it. Like, I don't know. I'm just curious because like throwing out is like a very active thing, right? It's like a very. I was just thinking like being aware of it and just let it die by itself. I don't know.
I'm not able to follow you. Mikey, can you help me understand what Ivan is saying?
Is it possible to starve out the kilesas? Is it possible to stop feeding them?
Yes, absolutely. That when you, let us say, that when you starve them out, they're easy then to get rid of. But in fact, the not feeding it, the starving it out, is actually actively getting rid of it. You don't give it any energy. So you could say then that I lost my girlfriend. Oh, poor me. She betrayed me. If we have that thought, we're feeding it. But if we can have the thought that says, "Oh, I got along without her before I met her. I can get along without her now. Wow, I don't need that girlfriend. Wow, she caused me so much trouble, and now I am free. I'm a whole lot better off now." And so we keep having wholesome thoughts and not feed that she betrayed me kind of thought. And pretty soon, like 3, 4, 5 centuries, or maybe 3 or 4, 5 decades, or maybe 3 or 4, 5 years later, we don't even remember her. Why? Because we starved out those thoughts. We didn't feed her. We relinquished those thoughts. We threw them out. But when we have those thoughts when she first left, oh, poor me, she betrayed me, she lied to me, she told me she'd love me forever, and then she left. Oh, poor me. Those feelings are hard to throw out. But we have to take the right noble effort to throw those thoughts out and put something else in the mind. So that's a way of starving them. You don't want to keep feeding those thoughts. So every time that girlfriend comes up, just one little kind of thought, just an image of her. Maybe you're looking through your sock drawer and you find her panties. You throw those things out. You don't snip them and put them back in the sock drawer. You throw them out. That's what we mean by relinquishment. Throw those things out. It takes an effort to do that. This is what we mean by the relinquishment. Are you good with that, Ivan?
Good.
All right. So let's continue on then with the Anapanasati Sutta. One of the things that we can see by the way that it's structured is that the entire Anapanasati Sutta is designed around the first jhana. Not all the jhanas, just the first jhana. That in fact in the higher jhanas, it actually has less of those 16. But if you're practicing correctly all 16 items of the Anapanasati Sutta, by practicing that, it brings us to the first jhana. This is an important point about the Vedana, that we cannot, in fact, see how the body and the mind and the feelings are conditioned until you learn to control those feelings. That you can, in fact, throw those unwholesome thoughts of poor me feelings out and have the thought of, hey, I'm better off without her. Wow, what a relief it is. I don't need her anymore. I'm okay. She left, goodbye. And so we have then the feeling of sukha. I'm okay without her. That's the satisfaction. So we practice that sukha. It's a skill to be developed. In fact, all of the items of the Anapanasati, except for the first two, talk about it in the sense, thus one trains oneself. This is all about practice. It's about training. It's about skill development. Yeah, Robert, go ahead.
Sure. Just to add to this, and also responding to Ivan's question as well, sometimes actions can be even better than thoughts in terms of starving the kilesas. So, for example, if you really yearn for the ex-girlfriend, you can think, that's not worth my time to think about, and instead I'm going to go for a walk with my dog, or I'm going to go to the language class instead of thinking about this, which is totally not worth my time. So I think action can also really help, action in a more positive direction.
Mm-hmm. Actually, we could use the English language word diversion here. Do something to get away from those kind of thoughts. Don't listen to the favorite song that the two of you shared. Go listen to something happy. This is the way that we would practice that. So in this regard, we're talking now about the gladdening of the mind because we investigate the mind. This is item number 9 and 10. And you could say that often this is the very first thing that the beginner has to do, is to learn to see how bad he feels when he's thinking about the lost girlfriend. He thinks how bad he feels when he just sees the laptop die and recognizing it as dead meat. Whatever that is, go do something else. Go think of something else.
Yes, and the way the mind works too is it really seizes on the initial stimulus, but always when you let a little time pass, that stimulus doesn't look so stimulating. The laptop dying is the worst right when it dies, but you give it 10 minutes, even 10 minutes, let alone the next day, it's not that big a deal. It's the same with any other loss.
Yeah, we go shopping for a new one.
So might as well let some time pass, go do something else, think about something else, work on something else.
So this is the way that we practice correctly. We practice correctly by seeing all of the stuff that is in the mind. And then we change it. We throw it out. We go divert it. We go do something else. And that the Buddha recommends that the thing to do is to do something that gladdens the mind, brightens the mind. Having thoughts that are better. Let's have some wholesome thoughts. In this regard, then, we're actually tying the Anapanasati Sutta with the Eightfold Noble Path. It's funny that one is 118, the Anapanasati Sutta, and the Great 40 that actually discusses in detail the Eightfold Noble Path. Guess what? That's number 117. So you can take those as twin suttas. 117 is the Eightfold Noble Path, and number 117, and then 118 is the Anapanasati Sutta, which is practiced then for the fulfillment of the Eightfold Noble Path. And that fulfillment is called then the Sambhojana, where you have unremitting mindfulness. You keep doing it. You have unremitting investigation. You keep doing it. You have unremitting effort. You keep putting in the effort, and soon it becomes energetic. You have unremitting joy. You keep coming back to the joy over and over again. You keep coming back then to the peacefulness. You keep coming back to the unification of mind. You're not scattered anymore. But in fact, when you're alone, you're unified. When you're there with your mind with the girl that's not there, now the mind is scattered. Me, her, me, her, me, her. And there's always that selfishness that's built into it, always that dissatisfaction. Oh, poor me. Look what they did to me. Oh, they criticized me. Oh, they did this and that to me. So there's that duality. Let's not have duality. Let's have unification. And when the mind is unified, it's easy enough just to let that stuff go, to throw it out. So the beginner has to throw it out. In the beginning, it takes effort. But if you develop that skill, here's an example of this would be in karate, that when the beginner starts off, his power is weak. He can punch you and you hardly even know it. But if you've been practicing throwing punches over and over and over again, then they're strong because you've been practicing. So you can practice that way. In fact, I'll give you an old story that when I was a beginner, in fact, I was already a green belt, so I'd been into it for about 6 months, and we were learning to do arm blocks, to go pow like that. And that there happened to have been a student who had been in prison, and he got out of prison and he went to the sensei and he says, I want to start practicing again. And sensei says, okay, but you got to start over again as a white belt. And so by the time he had graduated, I mean, white belt this week, yellow belt next week, green belt the next week after that, and now I'm here and I'm practicing blocking with him. And it felt like that I was blocking a lead pipe or a 2x4. His arm was strong. Almost broke my poor little arm because his arm was so strong when I blocked him. Why? Because he had been practicing all of that time, all of those years. His arm was strong. Okay, so we're practicing here also to make the mind strong. We have to practice over and over and over again of throwing those unhealthy, unwholesome thoughts out, and pretty soon you've got a mind that's strong enough to do it. You're gaining strength, you're gaining skills by repetitive practice over and over and over again. So, this is where we begin. We begin by brightening the mind, gladdening the mind, giving the mind a little bit of strength over and over and over again. We begin to see that all of those thoughts that we have are just rotting away. The unwholesome thoughts we have is because we don't like things changing. We want it to be the same all the time. We're not willing to let it go yet. So that's where the pain and discomfort comes in, is that she's going to die. Our relationship is going to die. The laptop is going to die. Everything is going to die. You're going to croak. Are you ready for that? You're going to die. Everything dies. Now, one of the ways that I would talk about it in is that if you lost a girlfriend, think about it in this regard. What if you had kept her and you had married her, and now both of you were really, really old and you've been married for 75 years, and then she dies? How are you going to feel about that? You had her for 75 years, and now you've lost her. Wow, that would be pretty heavy duty. Maybe it's better that you lose her the first year so you don't have to cling so much. So this is the way that we practice. We practice in the way of everything you're going to lose. You're not going to be able to keep anything. So part of the practice is the practice of throwing it out, letting it go, burying the dead, literally. It's dead. take the effort that it takes, get your shovel out, throw that dead body in the dirt, and cover it over. That's what we mean by relinquishment. It's not just a matter of letting it go. It's a matter of burying the dead. We have to take the right noble effort to do that. And so this is the entire score of the Anapanasati Sutta. It's the whole practice that leads one to the first jhana over and over and over and over again, so that you can begin to enjoy your life free from suffering. But in fact, one of the ways of saying it is that in Sutta number 36, in the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha talks about it. It's the story that's quite famous. Remember this story by the name of the rose apple tree. When the Buddha was a teenager, he was actually able to do the first jhana when he was still at his father's home. They were doing a planting ceremony, and he went and sat under a tree and chilled. So later, after he is out as a wanderer, he's practicing on getting good at all four jhanas. He was able to do stuff that people weren't able to do. And he recognized that the four jhanas did not give him the answer to the question of what he was looking for. Why? Because when he came out of the four jhanas, he was still miserable. So he then went to practice with the Jains, and he practiced the austerities. Oh, well, I've got to beat the poison out of myself. Self-flagellation, the Buddha is actually quite good at starving himself. And he became thin and emaciated. In fact, there's still statues around of, they call it the starving Buddha. It wasn't the Buddha who was starving. It was the Bodhisattva who was starving. It was Gautama who was starving. And then he woke up to the fact that if he's starving himself, he's not got the effort or the energy to put in to become enlightened. And it was then that he reflected upon the rose apple tree and the episode and recognized for sure that the path to enlightenment, the method of enlightenment, is the first jhana, unremitting first jhana. You keep coming back and coming back and coming back to the first jhana. Why the Westerners are all into high numbers, I mean, you know that the Wall Street folks, the bosses, they want a high salary. They want a big number. And so that whole mentality of the West is getting a high score. We passed the test at a C. Why can't we go through school with a C? That's good enough. We graduated. Hot dog, I'm free. But oh no, we want an A. We want an A+. We want an outstanding. We want a high score. We want to take the SAT and make 1,600. We really want these high numbers. And so when these folks that have all of that ordinary, I want a big one, comes in to Buddhism, they think that, oh, there's four jhanas. Let's go get them all. Let's go get those high numbers. In other words, what they're doing is they're not doing as the Buddha teaches. They're doing what the Buddha did when he was screwing up. Wanting these high jhanas is not the path. But when someone becomes really skilled at the first jhana, the second jhana is easy enough to get. But 90% or more of the work is getting that first jhana and being able to establish it. And the path to doing that is laid out in the Eightfold Noble Path and the Anapanasati Sutta, to get the mind stable enough so that you can see what's left in the bag. Just like Santa Claus, he looks in that bag and the first thing he finds is something big. He takes that out and he finds something almost as big, and he takes that out and he finds something else almost that big, and he takes it out, and pretty soon he's looking for small stuff in there because that's all that's left in the bag. And pretty soon after that, he's got the strength to turn that bag upside down and inside out and empty it completely. But we go for the big stuff first. That's why it's also effort. We have to take the right effort to throw that girlfriend out of the mind. She's heavy. She's fat. Weighs 150 kilos. Heavy. So, this is the way that we practice. We practice first with the heavy stuff because we can see it first. But as we take that out, there's little things that we can do to take that out too, so that we're no longer in a problematic state. But guess what? The first jhana is being able to get ourselves into that state of emptiness, to get ourselves into the state of, right now my bag is empty. Yeah, it'll get full again, but I'll have the skills to empty it then too. So this is the Anapanasati Sutta. I've touched all 16 points. There's no reason to hassle with each one of them, but the key ones are going to be to look at what the mind is doing, investigate the mind, make sure that you can see that the kind of thoughts that you're having are unwholesome, so that you can, in fact, throw them out. Gladden the mind. If you can gladden the mind over and over and over again and get satisfied, fairly soon you'll hit one of those peaks. Wow, I can really do this. And that's where the piti comes in. That's part of the first jhana. Later on, we're going to be able to have that sukha full time without having to be at that high point. We're just, everything is okay the way that it is, just in the state of satisfaction. So this is the way that we have it. We come to that steady state simply by practicing, really liking what we're doing, bringing on that satisfaction, gladdening the mind, brightening the mind over and over and over again. If you do that, then all of that stuff will come. All of that stuff will come. In fact, there's a Bible verse about that. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all things other than that will be okay. So this is how we would practice, is seek ye first, having your mind cleaned out, so that there's no difficulties, there's no problems, there's no worries, there's no flurries. Don't worry, be happy. And if we can get ourselves into that state over and over and over and over and over and over again, then life's a joy. You find out that it's not about a bank account. It's not about this or that or the other thing. It's about, can you keep bringing your mind back to a place to where everything is okay? Samantha, do you have any questions about this?
I think you can probably hear me now.
Go ahead.
I don't really have any questions. I actually listened to pretty similar talk earlier today.
All right. So practice over and over again. Ivan, do you have any questions?
Oh yeah, just a quick one. Well, it's less of a question. I just, sometimes I find myself like, maybe I call some yoga or whatever, and then suddenly my mind is supposed to, I need to meditate really strivingly for the next 20 minutes or 30 minutes. But I was thinking like that's like the wrong effort, right? That's too much effort. There's this like, I'm not taking it light and easy. So that's usually where I mess up.
Mm-hmm. You use the word lightly. It always reminds me when I hear that word that it is said that the reason that angels can fly is because they take themselves so lightly. So
Yes.
if you take everything lightly, then you're okay. You can fly. Nick, do Do you have anything to say?
No, nothing to say.
How about you, Dhammadas?
Oh no, just chilling. Thank you.
You've heard this before, I'm sure.
Good to see you, Dhamadas. It's been a while.
Oh, you're awesome, Robert. Good to see everybody.
Yeah, great to see all of you.
So, Paul, do you have anything to say?
Just once again, thanks a lot for the teachings. Some really good things for me to work with there. Thank you.
All right. We've got two Michaels. Michael Mitchner, what you up to? Well, let's try the other Michael. How about you, Michael? Michael Smith? We got somebody new called Eat Your Vitals. Eat your what? Vitamins? What do you think?
I that was quite technical, but I think I understand.
Well, it's something that needs to be gone over and over and over again. When people do their first algebra class, nobody understands. You got to keep after it and keep going.
Yeah.
Your first class at music school does not make you a virtuoso. You got to keep practicing, keep doing it over and over again.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, Lars, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I know. I thought the thing about the girlfriend was sort of just an analogy, but I know that I had some challenges in my life with girlfriends, but I feel like I'm too old now for any of that. So life is too easy for me. I don't know. It's just I can't believe that.
Funny, when we were 4 years old, we don't seem to need women. And then hormones click in, and then the hormones, and then we get over that too.
I offered my girlfriend $120 if she was going to lose 10 pounds, and everybody thinks that was the worst thing they ever heard that anybody ever came up with. But that was a long time ago, even though it doesn't seem that long ago.
All right. So it's been a big crowd today. We've got 12 people on the call. Isn't that marvelous? Michael, are you there yet? All right. Mikey, why don't you take this thing home?
Yeah, thank you everyone for being here today. Robert, go ahead. You have something to say.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, but
Yeah.
I'm not here as well.
Go ahead, Michael, and then I'll go.
Okay. So
Good
yeah,
to
if
see
you're
you.
watching this, good to see you too.
I'm at work,
If
but
you're-
hi, good to see you guys. I was just listening.
Wow, a lot of people are talking all at once. Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I just wanted to back you up on what you were saying about how you practice, and then it becomes effortless, and it's not even practice anymore. It's just living your life. You know, and I've been a friend and loyal student of Dhammarato's for years, and I have to say I've been practicing now for years to the point where a lot of this just feels like it is who I am. So, you know, I've had a very interesting legal situation the last few years. Dhammarato knows a lot about it. And I was telling him the other night how it's been so validating and wonderful how just me being myself when I go to deal with various officials here and there is works so wonderfully. You know, I've been really pleased with the friendship I've been able to develop with many various people during my situation. And I said, me being myself. The reason I use those words is because for so long now I've been practicing right speech. I've been practicing respect and kindness, you know, loving kindness, you know, metta, all these different things that it just kind of, a lot of this stuff just feels like who I am now. Talk and deal with God knows who. I make friends with them really fast and they really want to help me. I'm not even trying. It's not like I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to make friends. No. I'm just being me. I'm just being me. It's like how I live now, and years of doing this stuff, you know. And that's why I say, like yes, we can use all the esoteric Buddhist language to talk about these things, which is very precise and technical and helpful. But if you do just keep the Eightfold Noble Path as like a North Star, like that's your kind of goal, you know, for your end state, and you just kind of like you're lost in the woods, right? Imagine you're lost in the woods, North Star. You go to the North Star. Go to the North Star. You don't even have to meditate necessarily. But if you do that over and over and over again, walk to the North Star, the Eightfold Noble Path, eventually you just kind of are living that. You don't even think about going to the North Star because that's the way you walk. And it's really lovely, and it's not that complex. It's not like that great of a thing. You just kind of realize it one day. Oh, wow, I'm just being me. I didn't call Dhammarato and say, wow, I've been practicing so great. No, I'm getting these results. No, I said, wow, I was just me, and that's going really well, and I love that. You know, and eventually it just becomes who you are. So that's my little testimony there.
All right. You mentioned something, Robert, about being lost in the woods. You know something? You can't get lost in the woods. What you can do is say, I'm lost in the woods simply because I want to be someplace else and I can't find it. Wanting something that you can't have is, in fact, being lost wherever you are. So, if you are satisfied with where you are in the woods, then you're not lost. Here you are. And that's about what you're saying. Yeah, here we are. This is it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, too. If you take that North Star and that Eightfold Noble Path, you keep running with that. If you can find the North Star, you're never going to be lost in the woods because you know where North is, right? And that Eightfold Noble Path can help you navigate any woods, any wilderness, by not even feeling the need to navigate because you have the North Star. That Eightfold Noble Path can be your North Star. And may it be. May it be.
Excellent, excellent story. Good concept. The Eightfold Noble Path is the North Star. You follow that North Star. Keep following it. I know that we turn around and we go south for a while, but if we can remember that we can turn around and see that North Star, we can keep going in the right direction. And pretty soon, we're right there in the lap of Santa Claus.
Well, and sometimes you can go so far south that you end up north.
I don't think that people can survive that trip, though.
I sure did.
So, Michael, do you have something to say? You turn your mic on. Can you do it again?
I don't have anything to say. I just wanted to say hello because you were calling on me. So hi.
Yeah, I'll call on you just like the Dhamma keeps calling on you.
Yes, it does.
Okay, Mikey, take this thing home.
All right, if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and check out the YouTube description for various links to join our Sangha. Of course, go to opensanghafoundation.org sign up for an account, make some friends, post some posts, check out the groups, and yeah, just play around with it. There's all sorts of cool pages, resources, videos, books, etc., maps, things like that. And also we have a somewhat new group called One-on-One Dhamma Calls. If you're a seasoned practitioner, please feel free to join this group as well if I haven't already added you. And any newcomers and friends are all welcome to join our one-on-one Skype Dhamma Calls group. You can set up a one-on-one call there with another practitioner, and we encourage recording these calls so that you may watch them later for your benefit and for the benefit of others. So yeah, thank you everyone for being here today, and thank you Dhammarato for going over the Anapanasati Sutta once again.
My pleasure, as you can see. All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming. It's been a joyful day for me. I hope it's been a joyful day for you. It continues that way. All right. So, folks, we'll see you later.
Thank you. See you, Dhamma.
Ciao. Thanks for the nice guitar, Lars. Take care, everyone.